In Chapter 5, we will learn about string variables and the PHP functions for manipulating string data. Strings. A string is a sequence of text characters enclosed within single or double quotes. Strings can include characters such as letters, numbers, punctuations, and symbols. Concatenating strings. Concatenating strings means to join multiple strings together to create one string. Use the period operator to concatenate strings. Look at the example on the slide. You have a variable s1 that contains the string hello, and you have a variable s2 that contains the string world. Use the period to concatenate the strings in variable s1 with variable s2 and store the concatenated string in a variable called greeting. Greeting will contain the value hello world. Try the code in PHP Fiddle. You should see the expected results on the Window tab. There are other ways to concatenate strings as shown on the slide, but the preferred way is to use the period operator. Handling new lines. PHP requires special handling of new lines within a text area. Remember that a text area is a type of HTML form field that allows you to enter multiple lines of text. Every time the user presses return or enter when entering text in a text area, a new line is created. The new lines only exist inside the text area. You wouldn't see any new lines if you displayed the text on a web page. Notice in the example form at the top of the slide that the text in the text area is entered on several lines. If you just printed the text from the text area, you would see everything on one line as shown in the sample page output at the bottom of the slide. Use the NL2BR function to handle new lines when displaying on a web page. The NL2BR function converts any new lines in the string to HTML break tags. In HTML, the break tags create a new line on the web page. So the break tags cause new lines in the text area to appear as new lines on the web page. After using the NL2BR function, the output from the previous example would look like this. Each line in the text area is shown on a separate line on the web page. HTML and PHP. We know that PHP is a server-side technology and that it can send information to the web browser. There are potential problems if you display information just as it was entered on a web form. In general, a user can enter whatever they want. It doesn't have to be the information that you requested or expected. For example, the information entered on a form could include HTML tags, and displaying this information could impact the web page's content and format. There are several PHP functions to handle HTML tags and strings. The functions convert HTML tags into their entity version or removes them altogether. The HTML special chars and HTML entities functions convert special characters in HTML tags to their HTML entities. So let's quickly discuss HTML entities. There are certain characters in HTML that have special meaning. For example, the less than and greater than characters. These are used to identify tags in HTML. Anytime they're used on a web page, even if they're included in a text string, the browser will treat them with special meaning. To display HTML special characters in a string, you use the HTML entity version instead. In this case, the entity version for the less than character is &LT semicolon, and the entity version for the greater than character is &GT semicolon. HTML entities are described in the link at the bottom of the slide. Use the HTML special chars and HTML entities functions to convert HTML special characters to their HTML entities so they will display properly on a web page. For example, the HTML span tag would be converted to its entity version like &LT semicolon span &GT semicolon. This is displayed properly on the web page because it's treated as regular text as opposed to an HTML span tag. The strip tags function removes all HTML and PHP tags from the string. We will see examples of these functions shortly. It's important to check for HTML tags in the user-provided data for a few reasons. As we discussed previously, any HTML tags that the user enters could impact the display of the web page. A user could enter any HTML tags including tables, divs, or even CSS styles. There's no way of knowing what they will enter and how it will affect the content or the layout of the web page. And the HTML that the user enters could include JavaScript. And since JavaScript runs in the browser, this could be a security risk. The JavaScript could include code that creates unintended consequences, such as installing a virus or obtaining personal information. Review the code at the top of the slide. It's similar to the code in script 5.4 and will create output like the examples shown. We create a variable called posting with the value shown. Notice that the value includes HTML tags, specifically the HTML emphasis tags. This is an example of what a user might enter into a form. Remember that a user can enter anything that they want to, including HTML tags. The original line prints the original value in the posting variable. So you're displaying the text, including the HTML tags. The web browser recognizes the emphasis tags and displays the word something in italics. You can see this in the forum posting output example, and you can see the HTML emphasis tags in the HTML source code example. The entity line uses the HTML entities function to convert the emphasis tags to their HTML entities. In this display, you see the emphasis tags themselves instead of using them as HTML tags to display in italics. You can see this in the forum posting output example, and you see the HTML entities in the HTML source code example. The stripped line shows how the text is displayed when using the strip tags function. In this case, all HTML tags are removed, so you don't see the emphasis tags and you don't see the word something in italics. Try the code in PHP Fiddle. You should see the expected results on the Window tab. Encoding and decoding strings. Let's say you had to create a URL where the values contain special characters, say a quote or an ampersand, or a value contained multiple words separated by spaces. Any of these scenarios could cause problems for the PHP code that handles the data passed in the URL. Use the URL encode function to safely pass values in the URL to the PHP script. The URL encode function translates special characters into hex values and spaces into a plus sign. For example, the hex value of the @ sign is %40. So if you ran the URL encode function on the me@company.com email address, the result would be me %40 company.com, where the @ is encoded to %40. You can try this code in PHP Fiddle and try other special characters as well. From the previous slide, you only need to use the URL encode function when you create the URL manually. Use the URL decode function to return the URL back to its original values. A couple of notes here. PHP does some automatic URL decoding, so it may not be necessary to use the URL decode function. And URLs that are sent from a form submit are automatically encoded and decoded. So in this case, you won't need to encode or decode. Encrypting and decrypting strings. Encrypting is the process of changing data into a form that is very difficult or impossible to determine its original value. And decrypting is the process of changing it back into its original value. A password is a good example of data that you might want to encrypt. Basically, you change the value from plain text that can easily be read into a value that cannot be understood. There are several functions in PHP that perform encryption. The password hash function is one of those. If you had a password with the value myPassword and you ran the password hash function, the myPassword would be encrypted into the value you see on the slide. You can try this code in PHP Fiddle and try other passwords as well. Comparing strings. You compare strings to see if the values inside the strings are the same. Use the string compare strcmp function to do a case-sensitive compare of two strings. Use the string case compare strcasecmp function to do a case-insensitive compare of two strings. Both functions return a 0 when the strings are the same, and a positive or negative number when the strings are not the same. Look at the first example on the slide using the string compare function. When you compare string hello in lowercase with string hello in lowercase, the result is 0, which means that they are the same. When you compare string hello in lowercase with string hello in uppercase, the result is 32, which means that they are not the same. Even though the letters are the same, the case is not. And since case matters in the string compare function, they are not considered the same. Now look at the second example on the slide using the string case compare function. When you compare string hello in lowercase and string hello in lowercase, the result is 0, which means that they are the same. When you compare the string hello in lowercase and the string hello in uppercase, the result is also 0, which means that they are the same. Case doesn't matter in the string case compare function, so as long as the letters are the same, then the strings are considered the same. Try the examples in PHP Fiddle to confirm the results. You should see the expected results on the Output tab. You can also compare strings to see if one string exists inside another string. Use the string strstr function to find the first occurrence of a string inside another string. If the search string is found, then the rest of the string starting with the search string is returned. Otherwise, nothing is returned. Use the string position strpos function to find the position of a string inside another string. If the search string is found, then the position of the search string is returned. Otherwise, nothing is returned. Both of these are case sensitive. Use the case insensitive versions when you want to ignore case. Try the examples in PHP Fiddle to confirm the results. You should see the expected results on the Window tab. Finding substrings. PHP includes several functions for finding strings within strings. One of these is the string token strtok function. It looks for a token and returns portions of the string that are separated by the token. The first parameter is the string to look in. The second parameter is the token to look for. For example, if you have a string that contains a full name, that's a first name and a last name, and you look for a space as a token, then the first name would be returned. Look at the example on the slide. You see a string, "Hello world, have a great day today." And you see the string token function is looking for a space as a token. Since the string token function returns everything up to the token, in this case it would return the word hello. Try the example in PHP Fiddle to confirm the results. You should see the expected results on the Output tab. Another way to get part of a string from another string is using the substring substr function. It returns part of a string from another string starting at a specific position. The first parameter is the string to look in. The second parameter is the starting position to look within the string. The third parameter is the length of the substring to return. Two things to note. The starting position begins with 0, so the first character in the string is 0. And the length is optional and defaults to the end of the string if not provided. Look at the example on the slide. We have a string with the value hello world. You also see that the substring function will begin looking in position 6. So in this case, it starts with a W in world and returns to the end of the string. Remember to start counting at 0. It would return the word world. Try the example in PHP Fiddle to confirm the results. You should see the expected results on the Window tab. There are several other useful string functions in PHP. You can count the number of letters or words in a string. You can set the case to upper or lower on portions or all of a string. Try the examples from the textbook and the link in the slide to become familiar with how they work. Replacing parts of a string. You can replace part of a string using the string replace, strreplace, and string iReplace, strireplace functions. They work the same, but one is case sensitive and the other is case insensitive. The first parameter is the string to find. The second parameter is the string to replace with. And the third parameter is the string to search. Look at the example on the slide. We create a variable me with the name Larry, middle initial E, last name Ullman. Then use the string iReplace function to replace the middle initial E with the middle name Edward in the me string. You end up with a full name, Larry Edward Ullman. Try the code yourself in PHP Fiddle. The last string functions we'll discuss in this chapter are the trim functions. These are usually used to remove spaces from the left, right, or both sides of a string. You will often use these with text entered on a form. It's very easy for the user to enter extra spaces into a text field. Even though you cannot see the spaces, they are still there and can cause problems when handling the strings, especially when matching or comparing strings. It's a good practice to trim text fields that are entered into a form. Try examples from the textbook and the link in the slide to become familiar with how they work.